Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Industrious Manufacturing Intelligently webinar. My name is Imran Syed. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager here at BASS. The series is designed, our May Manufacturing Mayhem, to showcase the particular products we have within this vertical. And we're really happy here to provide you a presentation with one of our strategic partners, Industrios Software. Industrios really integrates data from sales, engineering, production, logistics, and critical accounting. Most notably and most important to a lot of people on the call is their seamless integration with Sage 300. The solution itself covers various different forms of manufacturing, whether you're made to stock, made to order, configured to order, or a mixed mode manufacturer. There's something here for you to see. I want to introduce today's presenter, somebody I've known for a little while, Edward Zuccalo. He himself has an engineering background, although he may deny it if you ask him. He sort of lives and breathes manufacturing. So prior to joining Industrious, he was working in a facility which was actually using the software, so he's got in-depth knowledge of how the solution works. As always, please type your questions in the chat window or the question mode. We will try to open up the lines at the end, and we'll take it from there. Edward?
Great, thank you, Imran. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to me speak a little bit about Industrios, introducing you to the product itself and the company, hopefully. And we're going to talk today about gaining efficiencies and productivity using the Industrios product. What I thought I would do is with a little bit of an introduction about our company and who we are, why we are, and why it is that we develop software. We'll move into a presentation of parts of the software, 3 or 4 key areas that I think you'll be able to see abilities to gain those productivities and efficiencies through its use. And I thought we'd wrap up before we get into some questions about 2 or 3 specific success stories that we've had in our customer base over the years, and gaining those kind of benefits from using an integrated tool. Sorry. So we've been a Sage partner for quite a while. We only develop manufacturing operations and distribution software for Sage products, in particular the Sage 300 ACPAC product. We have been working on this suite of software for many years now. Started off as basically job shop software and moving along, adding functionality over the years until we get to a fairly wide and deep set of modules that can handle to-order type businesses from one end to the other. And our mission, as stated at the top there, is to really work with manufacturing distributors to help ease their operations type pains. The environments that we have had success working within, as Imran said earlier, on the discrete side has been, mixes from any one of the 6 there that talk about, make to order, make to stock, depending on how you want to replenish your inventory or satisfy that demand coming in. But particularly on the mixed mode side, companies that have different either product lines or product areas that they want to manage through different methods, either on a very job to order basis, assemble, configure, or through project modes. That's really where the depth of transaction tracking and functionality comes to bear. I've listed a few of the industries that we've worked with over the years, just to give you a flavor for the breadth of types of companies that would be today happy using the Industrios product, right from the top in terms of very repetitive apparel makers, right to the bottom where we have very heavy industrial machinery customers that build limited number of products over the year, and their projects might last for months and months before they actually get to shipping the product out the door. Again, as Imran said, the integration points of Industrios to the accounting solution is really key to helping us get to where we're going in terms of having our customer base and users really manage their operations. And that third tile at the bottom looks at our core modules from managing customers all the way through production, and at the top has the treasury type functions that will be done on the accounting side from AR, AP, GL. The Industrious Integration Suite in the middle helps and manages that transacting of data back and forth either on a batch mode or a completely integrated as required push mode. And it gives you, as a user, the ability to control how you want that information moving back and forth. The key from our implementation point of view is that all operational functions will reside within the Industrios module so that you can gain the benefit of drilling back and forth within the information. A quick review of our module offering. The core of the system really revolves around managing those key integration points. At the top you have the customer manager, and over to the right the sales order fulfillment module, which handles the function of entering sales orders, creating shipments, shipping the product out, creating the invoice. On the left-hand side you have procurement and vendor management, which handles the process flow of making purchase orders, receiving the goods in, and creating the voucher waiting for the vendor invoice to come in. And at the bottom you see the production control and inventory. Obviously inventory is the key of all keys, but if you do replenish goods by producing them, not only buying them, the production control module gives you a full-featured suite of functions to manage those job orders and costs associated with them. As you move forward and into the different modes of manufacture, you can add modules that help you with quoting and estimating and even configuration of quotes. At the bottom we have advanced modules from a scheduling point of view, material planning, so our take and our functionality with for material requirements and netting that supply and demand, and then shop floor tracking, the ability to use multiple methods to get the actual information from a materials, machine, and manpower point of view back into the system so that you can do comparisons and reporting. And then a third layer of modules that really help on the top there, return of material authorization and customer service, which help you with the post-sale management of interactions with your customer, and then modules such as EDI, collections, and receiving to round out the suite. There are a few more, but the pie gets too big, and obviously the important part for us is pointing into the middle is all the information is feeding into that Sage 300 accounting solution so that you get a full end-to-end solution for your operations information. I will at this point flip over and we'll take some time now and look at some key areas within the software and show you kind of what we show there. So the Industrios main menu, as you can see, or the main interface, lists all the modules down the left-hand side, and most of them repeat what I've just shown you in the wheel of modules. And depending on your security and how you're set up, you will see different elements within the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you have the tasks that you're able to do. So I'm going to start off by going into the Customer Manager and into the actual Accounts Workbench, just to show you some standards and some ways of interacting with the data that we present to you. So the Accounts Workbench will list for me on any screen that we come into Industrios, the main list is showing us the information that we came into the screen for. So if I've come into an account screen, I expect to see a list of my accounts. And the little folder icon down the left-hand side lets me know that I can open up the folder and see more information within that record. There's some feedback that we give to the users here in terms of color coding depending on their status, if they're on hold or looking for credit approval, and we can use the bar across the top to further filter and show data views of that information. So if I happen to be a person that's managing only the Ontario accounts, I can come in, view just the Ontario accounts, and the system remembers that for me. Go back to all my records and show you some more information about one of my favorite ones, which is the Backroads Touring Company. So we'll go into Backroads, and you'll see a screen paint that gives you a really detailed view of all of the information and interaction you would have with that customer. And from this point, you can actually go into the Industrial Suite and do pretty much everything that you need to with respect to that customer. Along the top, you'll have fairly static information about who they are, their addresses, multiple phone numbers, and contact information. You do have a list of contacts at the bottom as well, but from a company point of view, your main information is on the top. On the Profile tab, we'll let you set up defaults for various places of interaction in terms of how do they pay, how do you establish credit, how do you price the product. Maybe they have multiple carriers that you're shipping from and you want to track the carrier information so you can generate shipping documentation later on, all managed within this customer manager. At the bottom, you will have a view into their current aging. It gives you a picture of their unposted credit, some of their credit information, and then an aging in terms of what's going on right now. So in this case, I can see that this customer has $90,000 in outstanding invoices. I may want to go peek a look at those transactions, which will show me not only the outgoing information from Industrios, but also the payment information received back from Sage 300. At the same time, I could have seen that they are in arrears from a collections point of view, and in a second I'll show you a collections view of the same customer so you can get a better picture of our invoice interaction with them. Along the bottom of the screen, you see different areas to drill into interaction points with this particular customer. So we have an underlying appointment system which lets you go back and forth and tag those appointments to specific information within Industrios on the operation side. So in this case, I've got an activity set up as a sales follow-up. I can click the folder to open it up, and it'll show me that I'm actually following up. It's a nice order possibly coming in, and the quote that we actually sent them was $345. So if I want to open up the quote and interact with it, I can do that. If I want to complete the task and assign it to somebody else or follow it up, I can do so as well and schedule it. It comes in with a little, again, calendar of activities and tasks related to documents within Industrios are all held within this appointment manager. As I continue going along the tabs, we have abilities to look at all of the operational information. I can interact with quotes. If I'm using the project module, I can look at their projects, or I can have a peek at their current tickets, for example, from a customer service point of view. So as a customer manager or sales manager, I can have a kind of a one-stop shop and a one-stop view of every interaction with that customer. I can filter it, and again, I can keep drilling down. If I go back to the Operations tab, you'll see that we have a quick list of all the current orders. I can look at shipments that are ready to post and get out the door. A view into my shipment history, so I can maybe grab the tracking information and follow up with them on the phone, and invoices and as we go forward. This is a customer that I want to interact with and make a quote. Rather than having to pop up or open up a window to go into the quoting module, I can actually start the quote and begin the process right from this point here. So the plus icon there lets me know that I can create a new quote. I, for the purposes today, went ahead and I create a quote. I have created a quote for the BAS project, and I'm going to open that quote up. The quoting module allows us to generate prices and quotes in 3 or 4 different methods. When I look at the actual lines on the quote, we're going to be able to select inventory items, which means we buy and sell, and we generate the price based on a price table or a price matrix that's fit within inventory. Or I can engineer my quote, which means take a particular routing or bill of material and manage it or modify it for this particular need. Or I can go right to a configuration, which allows me to ask a number of questions, an unlimited number of questions, which will then build that bill of material and routing specific to this need. And in this case, I've gone ahead and I've built a special, in this case, the company that we're working with builds bicycles, and I've built a special bicycle for BAS. Now you'll note, if I were to go into my inventory master right now, I wouldn't find this item called the BAS Special. The Industrios quoting module allows you to place placeholders not only at the finished good level but anywhere on the bill of material, so that you can generate your quote, and when you actually convert that quote to an order, you can stop it in engineering and create all the correct procurement and inventory information that you would require. If I look at the details for this special bicycle, you'll see that it breaks down for me the high-level costing information in terms of these criteria, gives me a view of the amount of hours that I'll need on the shop floor, and I can play with the different markups in the different areas to generate a price. If the customer calls me right now and says, okay, I like what's going on, can you let me know when I could ship it? Rather than having to go through and do a trial schedule, you can run kind of an availability of this one line, ask them when they're going to buy the product. Maybe they'll say they're going to buy it on Monday, and we say okay. The system will go out and check those items, look at the lead time on the shop floor of how fast we can generate 100 hours of work, and it will give us an indication of that all of the components become available to me on July the 1st, and given the 4-day lead time that 100 hours represents, I'm going to need to July the 5th till I can actually generate this product and get it out the door. If I want to drill further into details and look at which is the item which is causing my problem, I can highlight that this is the item, this rim, the aluminum rim. The vendor is listed for me, and I can then go and look at other orders to see if I can consolidate orders, expedite orders, or do different things to possibly move this date moving forward. And not only is it showing me material items that relate to this, it's also showing me subcontract items. So very quickly and efficiently at the front end, by using the customer manager, you can go in, generate your documents, and start to look into the different places within the system to find problems, issues, or areas that you want to continue working on. In this case, there's a workflow associated with the quoting module, which allows us to manage the statuses that we run through. So the status button is a workflow engine here, which will allow us to create any number of sequences or statuses. And at any change of those statuses, the system will generate or can generate an email, a notification, an appointment to somebody within your organization to let them know that either a quote has progressed to a certain level or something has to happen. In this case, I'll show you what the screen looks like to win a product. So we're going to say that this customer wants to buy the product. It'll present a screen for me, which lets me know that I can say I've won it. An error comes up immediately letting me know that the item doesn't exist, and I can go through some functionality to create that item at this point. But I want to highlight that what we can do at this point as well is not only update the price matrix so that we know that for this customer we'll sell them 12 of these bicycles at this price, but we could actually add the item to the sales order. We can go right ahead and add the item to a production order, or we can bypass the production order and add it to an engineered plan, which lets me finalize and formalize all of my engineering prior to issuing the production order. So again, you have nice control right from the front to get into all the different areas that you would otherwise need to from this one set of screens. Take a second here to highlight another element for you. Everywhere within Industrios you have this little report or printer icon, and this gives me access to a wizard which allows me to add or manage tasks, and each of these tasks has wizard properties associated with it. So in this case, if I was looking at an account, I could go through and pick which accounts it wants, or what is the ranging or filtering criteria that I would want, how I want to group it, and I can configure the report. But the key is at the end of that, you generate to the routing tab, which allows me to either view or send the document out immediately, or go back to a server-based process to do the work somewhere else and let me know that it's completed. And if I use that functionality, I can automatically repeat that either on an interval basis or certain days of the week at a certain time. And this is our approach to workflow, which allows us to trap different events happening. If I were to create an order at the point of creating that document or creating that quote, for example, I could have trapped a particular condition based on checking on an interval basis, and if the condition is matched, then some other activity can happen, such as emailing somebody, faxing somebody, or sending somebody a report or a note. And this functionality, this wizard functionality, is available everywhere within, basically on every screen within Industrios. So step one was to give you an idea or picture of how we can quickly interact with our customers. We could have entered sales orders. We could have entered, as we did, we entered a quote. And at that point, we can then move forward and we can run through the workflow associated with shipping product out. So I'm going to go from the beginning right to the end, and then we'll fill in the middle as we go through. So Industrios has full capabilities to allow different organizations to generate what we call a calculated shipping requirement. So this is a task that would run on a nightly basis or an hourly basis, whichever one you have to do. And it will generate for the, could be customer service or somebody in logistics, a listing of all of the orders that match within the window of criteria, gives them an indication by color as to what the status of that order happens to be. So a green order means that we have enough stock and all the stock has been fully committed. So I can select all the green ones and see that a whole bunch of them go through the same ship via or shipping zone. These might be a FedEx or a particular zone. And this allows me to grab them all or grab whichever ones I want to and create the shipments. It's not actually shipping the product at that point, but it's actually moving the shipments off into a shipping area. After I've completed my work list and finished all my greens, I might want to look at maybe my yellows, which is I've got something that's partially available, and it gives me an indication here as to how much of that order is available to ship. And this customer has actually allowed us to make partial shipments. Whereas somebody that's orange, this Kmart has told us it doesn't matter what we want the 100% commitment ready before we actually ship the product, which keeps all of the orders that we do not want shipped out of the actual shipment workbench. So once we're finished our tasks here, we can go into the workbench itself, and at this point we can interact with that shipment. We can consolidate shipments, we can generate bills of lading, we can generate picking tickets, pro forma invoices, any outbound documentation that's required. Once we've filled in all the information, carrier, whatever happens to be, weights, packaging information, palletizing information, broker information, we post that shipment, and that will relieve inventory and go ahead and create an invoice that's staged, ready for us to match and move on. So from a beginning to end, from managing your customers right through entering sales orders and shipping the product, everything is done within this Industrios framework right here. I won't go into it, but the equivalent is on the vendor side. So managing your vendors, who they are, who you contact, what open POs what you have with them, what open receipts are managed in a similar function or fashion. And then the procurement stream as well, you'll see has the ability to do purchases, you receive them, create your vouchers, and if you have to create debit memos, you can. So as we're going through and generating all of the incoming orders, incoming jobs, you can run through the Industrios material planning calculation or engine, and the result of that calculation will be, well, two of them really. It's a set of suggested requisitions, which is a list of things that need to be purchased, or it'll place suggested jobs back into the production control module. If we want to have an overall view of where I am with material planning, we can go into the material planning query, and this will give us basically a weekly view of all of the different elements that are moving through that material planning calculation. Rather than using inventory locations, we're accumulating inventory locations into planning locations, which allows us to net locations if we need to, or exclude locations from the engine so that we can maybe supply that demand through different ways. If you're using our forecast interface, your spreadsheets for forecasts will come in here as well. But really, as a planner, what I'm looking for is I want to filter out only those things that I need to buy and only that have suggested orders against planned requirements, not preliminary requirements. So in this case, in bucket 1, which is this week, I need to take care of these things. I've got some suggested orders which I may want to generate, and I can go through on an item-by-item basis and take care of these action items, or I can go through the material planning suggested requisition workbench and take care of it maybe from a vendor point of view. Here, the reports available to me are maybe the action report from a planning point of view or an analysis of your material planning. And the nice thing is I can connect all of these tasks together so that automatically when the material plan runs at 4 o'clock in the morning, it'll run these reports and send it to my email inbox so that I have it ready to go when I start work in the morning. It's a quick view of material planning. Let's take a separate step now. We'll kind of keep moving through, and we'll take a look at sending things on to, let's have a look at the schedule. So as you create jobs and as you assign those jobs a routing and a work center sequencing, which is the machines that you need to have a particular product run through, it'll load it onto a production workbench, which is kind of your master production workbench. What scheduling here allows me to do is to run different scenarios. So I may run a scenario that is one shift, for example, or I might create a scenario which is 2 shifts with weekends, or I can run a scenario which is 2 shifts with weekends except for the saws because the saws are under maintenance. And you can see as you run these different scenarios, you can run comparatives so that you can decide which scenario as a scheduler you want to actually implement into production, and you implement it through the use of this icon. As I'm interacting with the workbench, I can do things like I can grab a sequence and I can move it, I can resequence it, I can possibly try to move a job from one machine to another, and it might not let me because it's only defined on one machine, and you can define alternates. So it'll test and it'll let you know if you're breaking any rules. If I want to have a look at the overall dispatch for a particular piece of equipment, I can double click on it and it'll show me a view of all of the jobs scheduled and how the schedule is supposed to run through and how much is actually remaining on any one of the jobs. If I want to view the job, I can. If I want to assign it to an alternate work center and move it, I can also do that as well. So you can interact with your schedule on a very simple basis as we go through. Finding out which jobs are allocated or not allocated is quite quick. You can use the binoculars to find those particular jobs, and you can take them out of the schedule and you can re-put them back in to the schedule, because again, you're working with a test area or a trial area without your production jobs actually being moved around until you physically implement it. Now, another view of your schedule might be to take a look at all the work centers and having a view or a look at bottlenecks. Now, as you can see here, everything is green, which is good. Yellow would be worse and red would be bad. I am obviously a very good scheduler, so everything's in green. And it lets me highlight those different areas where in this week I'm looking at pretty much everything's okay. I may have some bottlenecks created in the saw or this area, and I can double click again, have a look at the jobs, and start to move those things around to come up at the end of the day with a good and useful work plan or dispatch listing that you can hand off to your production supervisors or your production foreman. Where that actually occurs, I'll go back and look at the production workbench, which will be a listing of all of my jobs. All jobs at all statuses will sit within this workbench. You can start to refine and look for particular instances or filtering different criteria to find jobs that maybe that are only in process or that are running late or that are over cost. And as I run through, I might have a particular job, which in this case it's in process. I'm curious as to how I'm doing with it. The summary tab will give me a quick view as to when it started, when it was released, how much I've closed. Look at my estimated dollars for that batch of product, my actual dollars generated so far, and I can track physically where it is on the shop floor. Now, in this case, I am really curious as to why my work center hours, I've estimated this amount of dollars, and I am obviously way over in this amount of dollars. I can quickly have a look at all of the detailed transactions generated to make these things accumulate. So the way that we get these transactions back into the system are either from a shop floor station or from manual data transaction entry, or through handheld units that are people roving around the shop floor and making the transactions. In this case, I only want to to look at a particular grouping of work centers, again, I can refine my criteria and my view as to what I want to see, where the source was. Is it all types of documents or just those documents that came from production? Any other criteria in terms of dates and times as well are available to me. So I can analyze from a job point of view how my job costs are accumulating as I'm working through. As you can see here as well, we have a multitude of functions that allow us to interact with our jobs, which might be to reload the jobs and schedule them, highlight and update user-defined information, look at drawings associated with it, possibly link these jobs to other jobs within the system so that you can have a chain of jobs that have to be scheduled together, so that if one job moves, other jobs have to move as well, and so on and so forth. The icons along the top allow me again to drill into different areas within that job table. The main driver of having these jobs here is the ability then to do numbers of reports, job cost reports, physically printing out the traveler or the shop documentation, looking at your schedule dispatch, either in this case by work center. I can generate my production pick tickets if I have to go out and get raw materials moved to the beginning of production, or look at some interactions with my either material shortages or what's happening with my capacity. So again, one place to go, all of the reports and all the things that you would need to do to manage that batch of jobs would be within this one area. Now, as we're going through, and if you are doing and you have a type of environment where you need to track elements from the shop floor, this is a very powerful set of functionality that you could deploy along in the warehouse or in the shop floor. And I'll just give you an idea. So I'm going to log in as an employee, and I could scan this employee, or I can just key it in, and I can interact with the time here. So I can start jobs. It's telling me I actually clocked in. Time and attendance functionality is fully covered. I can do things such as indirect labor, so I can calculate and track all of the white time in between running jobs. I can start equipment, I can set it up and run it, and it will start accumulating time based on the fact that I've got my work clock started. I can have a look at jobs and link back to the drawings as well, right from the shop floor terminals. Now, the end result of having this working is that you'll get a view by machine, in this case, as to what's physically going on in the shop floor. So this is kind of a supervisory view and tracking of where jobs happen to be. And as you can see here, we do support the ability to have multiple companies running through one shop floor station at the same time. So if you have a distributed environment, or maybe you're managing a couple of plants, you could actually see all that information in one place. You can transact in those different companies from the same place, and then you'll get some feedback as to what's happening in terms of the time. How are we doing against the estimate? How are we doing against the parts to be completed? And how are we doing against the run times? And as I scan through, these things will change depending on what's actually physically moving along the shop floor and feeding back the information to whoever's using it. Generally, these are supervisory screens, or they are screens placed around the facility so that people can see the status of their different jobs. The same way, I can come out of here and I can have a look at what's happening with particular groups of employees. So because I'm using those terminals for my clock in, I can have a look at maybe all the records. I can look at maybe a particular shift. I can look at a particular department to see if they're physically here. And once they're here, I can have a look at what they're physically doing on the shop floor. So it gives me, again, a quick way to let people generate transactions where they need to transact them, rather than filling in manual slips or manual production reporting. Come back and have the system automatically update and move that information back through Industrios for you to view. Okay. I'll come out of the shop floor screen. So I'll just minimize this for a second. So we talked about managing customers and interacting and going through, moving through quoting, sales and some of the shop floor activities in terms of schedule and material planning. Take a quick look back. We talked about having a different view of information of our backroads company who happened to be in arrears, and I wanted to have an idea of what was going on. This collection summary will give me a flip view of the account. So it's the same information I had on the account, but now it's grabbing all the collection profile for me, and it's adding on what activities we have run through with all of the different invoices that are still open, any of the payment information that has come through, or any of the appointments and tracking that we have implemented to actually try to collect this money. So again, because of the way that the information is posted all together, we can go through and have each department or each area manage their own functional requirements. And if we wanted to have a view not only of the account itself or the particular operations, generate a quote, service tickets, we can go back and look at that all from one workbench. Again, a very powerful system that allows you to move back and forth fairly quickly. On that third tier of the wheel as well, we talked about a bunch of different modules, but I'll highlight here on the customer service and the return material. And I'll highlight here one thing I haven't shown you, which is kind of on the master file side. So when you're setting up Industrios, how it is that we can support the different modes of manufacture. We've implemented this concept of types. So as you go through and you're creating, in this case, a service ticket, you would create different types of service tickets, and they would have a little bit of criteria or driving information that supports them. So a new installation, if I look at the statuses that are available, it would have all of these different statuses available. And I can make some of them available, not all of them available, depending how you want to move through the system. And at each time that this status changed, I might want to do something. So when this changes to cause analysis, the queue is getting updated in process. If I'm ready for billing, its queue is changed to billing, and I might want to send an email or create an activity for someone at that point to let them know that the item is ready for billing. So the concept of the types really lets us differentiate different process flows, different departmental flows, different product flows that would go through either, the sales order methodology, the quoting methodology, the job, or the purchasing methodology. Coupled with customer service, we have a full RMA manager, which allows us to view and manage all of the interactions that happen with a requirement for an RMA. So in this case, I'll just have a look at one of them. Let's have a look at this one. And we can generate transactions based on this, this workflow. If I create a new transaction, it'll give me an idea of what I can do. So I can receive the items, inspect them. I can actually generate the disposition of them by putting them back into stock, returning them to a vendor, or scrapping them out. Restocking is covered by the drivers of stocking criteria and stocking charges. I can go through and ship a replacement. I can replace it with a different item if I want to. After I've repaired it, I might want to return the goods to a customer, or I can do financial transactions as well through the system. And again, everywhere through where we're looking, the RMA is tagged to an account. If I open the account, it'll take me back to the customer manager. I can link right back to the different RMAs, view different documents, print out different documents, or see what it is that I need to see at any place within the system. So that gives you, hopefully, a taste, an idea of the main process areas that you could use Industrios for. So depending on the type of manufacturer you are, if you're configured to order or assembled to order manufacturer, you would heavily use the quoting and estimating with the configuration integration put in. If you're a pure job shop, you might just use the production control with those embedded plans like I showed you in terms of being able to differentiate items as you go through. If you are a repetitive manufacturer making the stock, you then would set your criteria for inventory, minimums, maximums, stocking, turnover requirements, stocking number of days, and those different constraints that you'd have with your items within the inventory manager and have that drive through material planning. At the end of the day, we also give you tools to analyze and take snapshots of your manufacturing costs, your purchase price cost, to look at where your standard costing is. And if I have a look at this workbench, for example, you'll see I've taken a bunch of different snapshots over time, and each of these different snapshots could include different information or different items within the snapshot. And at the end of it, what we're allowing you to do is to interact with the system to see if there's information here. Move through what your highest cost in the particular period of transaction was, your mean cost, your average cost, and if you want to physically, if you want to actually update the standard cost, you can actually just key in the numbers right here based on your criteria, tag them, and update those cost elements, and actually update the standard cost right through this transaction workbench analysis type screen. The other thing that is allowed off of these screens, for example, would be, if I look at the inventory analysis, you can generate reports such as your excess inventory or slow-moving inventory. Industrios does use Crystal as its reporting engine, so the standard reports are available to you, and if you have to tweak them or massage them a little bit, you can add them onto this task listing. You can create your own parameter sets for them, and then you can route them and send them anywhere that you need to at the end of the day. So different modes of manufacture, modular type system which allows you to pick and choose how you want to implement. There is a core that's required, as we talked about at the beginning. You have customers and vendors, sales and purchases, inventory is the core, the bare minimum that you need to make it work. And then to add to that, you would add the different modules as you want to deploy the product as you're moving through. Before I end off and go through some of the success stories, one of the key and core areas of running Industrios as a manufacturing system is our bill of manufacture or our process plan. And I'm going to highlight for you a set of items. So I'm going to look at a particular bicycle. And it shows me that I have different versions or different ways of building that same bicycle. Now, the different ways could be an engineered requirement that might have an alternate version that's actually effective as a particular date. So maybe there's an item on this plan which gets obsoleted and replaced as of this date so that I could pre-cut in those engineering changes. But you also have the ability to manage everything to do with building that product. So not only do you have the routing of the equipment, so the dark is the equipment, the light blue is the labor required at that equipment, and some equipment doesn't have labor, some equipment has more than one labor. You have the amount of time required here in terms of setup or runtime, multiple units of measure from a runtime point of view. And as I scan through, the bill of material blocks are built in conjunction with where you need to use them on the shop floor, so that you have a full ability to time phase your material requirements and have the right information, the right materials available when required. The last element here allows us to actually interact with the scheduling. So we have different tools that allow you to describe and model how a product runs through the shop floor. So a normal delay would be a standard end of one sequence, beginning of the next. Queue time gives you a delay in between. An overlap is a start to start, or start to start. A lag is kind of an end to start, and a parallel means you can start them at the same time. So you can, for example, say that this sequence, and this sequence all have to happen in parallel, and you can't send it outside until all three are finished. That allows the scheduler to place these in the appropriate time buckets, and when all of them are completed, it then schedules the outside processing. A highlight for outside processing is we fully support two types of subcontracting, which is taking product from your work area and sending it out to get added value brought back, or taking a bunch of elements from your inventory, sending them out, and bringing them back as something else. And the subcontract manager allows you to create bills of lading and purchase orders and packing lists and everything that you need to for that particular subcontractor. Okay. So lots of depth and lots of tools that you can implement, again, as you need and as you kind of become proficient with the different areas in the system. So let's have a look at, at a couple of customers and how they've been able to gain particular improvements. In this case, this company here had a particular challenge around inventory. It was a fast-moving type of company, and they were losing a significant amount of time. If you look at point number 4, they were spending a lot of time stopping production and stopping everything to do a physical count of all their inventory. Through the use of different techniques within the system, using barcodes, implementing the mobile transactions, using our physical count engine, they were able to implement weekly cycle counts, and at the end of the day have completely eliminated their year-end counts, as opposed to, in addition to some byproducts of having better inventory control and reducing the amount of offsetting transactions or write-offs and write-downs that they've had to make through the system. A second example, both the next two are kind of growth-oriented companies. So this company grew through acquisition. They bought a number of different organizations, and we're trying to amalgamate them and bring them into one standardized processing routine, and at the same time had to maintain their requirements on the FAA, and both the FAA and the quality, which is difficult because as processes are changing, they have to redocument them and move them. At the end of the day, they have acknowledged that the results that they've generated through bringing all these companies together has been significant improvement in deliveries. The upfront process in terms of entering sales has been made better, and what I like to see is that they had better planning through the access to different information all in one place, rather than having disparate systems or silos of information throughout the organization. And the last one is a large Western Canadian company that builds significant project-style heavy equipment, and they were growing leaps and bounds and definitely had issues in terms of cash and buying all the material coming in and being able to track those costs as they were going through, because the actual planning of the product and the engineering of the product wasn't completed until the project was actually completed at the end. So it was kind of a very engineering-centric organization. Now, what they've been able to, through the implementation, again, of key parts of the system and key modules, have been able to gain definite benefits in terms of efficiencies and productivity, and being able to grow their business without having to add any personnel to actually manage the system itself. And that is an introduction to Industrios. So Imran, I'd like to pass it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Edward. That was fantastic as we kind of went through it. Certainly encourage anybody to type in their questions within the question window or the chat window right now for Edward. As always, please, you can contact me directly or your account manager to learn more information. I'm sure Edward would be more than happy to do something a little bit more tailored towards your company and have a presentation outlining that. And we also have some great materials in terms of videos and collateral that we can share. So at this time, I'll just ask if there's any questions. Was there anything else that you wanted to sort of cover off, Edward, that we may have missed, or common questions that you see?
No, I think typically, people as they're looking at a system like Industrios, and it kind of touches so many places within the company, a lot of people, really wonder, where to start or how to get started. And, when working with groups like yourselves, we have a very our method for implementing the system is very tailored towards the business processes, and you can see how that's reflected in the way the modules are kind of built, so that you don't need to have the whole thing implemented all at once. You pick your pain points and you address those areas, and our recommendation is always, at the core of the system, get your inventory right, get your customers in line, get your vendors in line, and then add on as you move forward.
Excellent. Perfect.
Okay. I guess the last thing I'll add is, for those of you out there that are currently using the Sage 300 product, there is no conversion migration of data required. Basically, we're a bolt-on package that goes onto it. There's some work to be done to manage the increase of information that we have in terms of data that results within inventory, customers, or vendors, but you don't lose any of your historical information that you've generated over the time of use already. So your investment is protected.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, you know what? I don't see any additional questions coming in. So I think we can go ahead and conclude the webinar. I just want to thank Industrios and Edward here for the presentation. We will have the recorded version available online by the end of the week, and certainly open to sharing that with anybody who'd want a copy. Thanks so much, Edward.
Thank you.